We won't greenlight a film until we have a finished script we're happy with, and we won't cast until the script is finished. James Gunn famously said that in 2025. In light of DC's 2026 Supergirl adaptation already losing about $100 million at the box office, and that's discounting marketing costs, today we wanted to look at why this adaptation is already probably dumped on VOD by the time you're watching this. Today, I'm going to be looking at why this isn't resonating with audiences and why I think that James Gunn should have taken a much closer look at the screenplay before greenlighting it. Some people liked it, sure, some people hated it, but the general consensus, and this is backed up by the fact that where I live it was pulled from cinemas after only a week, it's a resounding meh. A lot of the criticism that you've probably heard thus far is largely superficial, the needle drop was weird, the coloring was kinda ugly, it feels just like another Guardians of the Galaxy. But here at Kinolime, and as always, we want to focus on the heart of the story, which is character. Today, let's investigate why Supergirl failed to reach the lofty heights of last summer's Superman, and why the likes of Logan and True Grit succeeded where Anna Nagara and James Gunn failed. I'm Meara, screenwriter and creative executive here at Kinolime, and welcome to Fix It. The greatest issue with Supergirl is that Kara and Ruthye do not learn anything from one another. This relationship is the heart of the story, it's what kicks the plot into gear, it's the emotional core of the journey, and it's through this pairing that the film attempts to deliver its thematic message. So why isn't Kara and Ruthye's dynamic exciting the movie-going public? This is the single most important question that all you writers at home should be asking yourself of your own work. If one facet, like the connection between your two leads, feels boring, the entire premise can fall apart. Fail to make this aspect bulletproof, hold for applause, at your own peril. In a buddy-up story like this, reciprocal transformation is key, and without that, your whole premise is going to feel hollow. I recently came across a great video by screenwriting YouTuber and film professor Big Red Stripe titled "Boring Characters Are Not a Character Problem." He posits that boring characters are never really the core issue, it's the story that is making them boring. Characters become dull when they are unimportant, and in the case of Supergirl, both leads have this desire, but they're not informing one another as they move toward that objective. Big Red Stripe articulates something I find in a lot of the work I do for early career screenwriters particularly. When they get a note that a character is uninspiring, they cannot resist diving deeper into backstory. The trauma, the idiosyncrasies, the interstitial complexities. More often than not, and in the case of Supergirl, this accomplishes nothing. It's like putting lipstick on a pig. Consider Kara and Ruthye's story. Once we reach the break into Act 2, their trajectories are set. They do not rub off on one another, communicate, or argue the depths of their principles, or improve each other as people. They are passengers with a sort of shared end goal, and that results in a lot of negative space in your story. The engine fails to make them interesting, and no amount of manufactured trauma or fun little quirks is going to cover that up. The consequence is a rinse and repeat Act 2. They're allegedly closing in on Creme of the Yellow Hills, but this is depicted by the cyclical Kara loses her powers, gets them back, beats up some bad guys, story beat. This happens like 5 times. They feel like they're on parallel journeys, Kara and Ruthye, like they're sharing an Uber to the same destination, but they're strangers to one another. Many films follow a near-identical pattern to Supergirl with its seasoned, reluctant mentor figure and a preppy, principled student. For the purposes of comparison, we'll today be looking at True Grit and Logan, but this goes for The Last of Us, Shane, Midnight Run, Leon the Professional, Terminator 2 Judgment Day, and Pixar's Up, as well as many others. So why is this so prevalent? It's because certain archetypes are complementary. The weathered, cynical mentor is moved by the emotionally open, inexperienced mentee. The mentor regains hope and vulnerability, and the mentee gains experience, confidence, and maturity. It's a tried and tested formula. The 2026 film is too loosely based on Tom King's incredible Woman of Tomorrow comic book. A story with a lot to say about revenge and about how burning passion will leave you cold once it's spent. In that source material, Kara and Ruthye initially clash, but eventually improve one another. Stepping back even further, the comic run is predicated on True Grit, Charles Portis's 1968 American classic. We're going to take a look at that story, asking why the novel resonates so deeply, and how your characters must inform one another if you want your story to feel special. In the novel, as well as its adaptations, we follow Mattie, a teenage girl who seeks help exacting revenge on Tom Chaney, a scoundrel who killed her father while employed as a farmhand. Her life has been poisoned by her relentless pursuit of revenge instead of justice. She seeks out US Marshal Rooster, a grizzled, alcoholic man she's convinced will funnel his penchant for violence into suitably punishing Chaney. Rooster begrudgingly agrees because he needs the money, but is reluctant when Mattie insists she tags along. To begin with, Mattie has strong principles but no experience and little compassion. Rooster has great experience but no ambition and even less compassion. LaBeef is all ambition, inherited principles, and way too much ego. As the trio track Chaney, these varying qualities begin to equalize. Mattie learns that people aren't categorized as good or bad in real life. Her mentors are flawed, vain, often selfish. Not at all the figures that fit this heroic mold she's dreamed up, but she learns that anyone can be courageous. Protecting people can be a braver decision than punishing them. Rooster, on the other hand, is worn down by life. He views the world as an ugly place in which people do not change. Mattie's naive, limited perspective restores Rooster's sense of purpose. She refuses to compromise her principles. As I say, she's stubborn, which Rooster struggles with at first, and her insistence that Rooster is some great lawman capable of saving the day eventually forces him to become the man he's rumored to be, or maybe once was. Eventually, her stubbornness becomes the very thing he admires. Finally, LaBeef is driven by professional recognition. He's chased accolades and reputation, things that Mattie thinks about very little. Mattie constantly deflates his ego, forcing him to reconsider his purpose beyond just external recognition. Each of the three seriously informs one another. Because Supergirl is a simpler narrative, on paper at least, as Kara fulfills the Rooster role without the complication of a true LaBeef archetype interfering. This is why they tried to ham-fist Lobo in, and it falls flat. Ana Nogueira may as well have constructed the story as a dual narrative, and better yet, position Ruthye as the POV, as is the case in both Woman of Tomorrow and True Grit. She is the character with the thesis, Supergirl is the one with the antithesis, so the eventual synthesis of the two should primarily belong to Ruthye. In 2017's Logan, Wolverine begins the film as an isolated, cynical individual who has cut nearly all ties with his old life. He has long abandoned any form of heroism, seeks to avoid new responsibilities, and just really wants to be left alone. Laura, X-23, is feral, distrustful, and defined by her design as a weapon. She seeks freedom, but on a deeper level she needs guidance, connection, and family. Logan initially treats Laura like a burden, and she sees him as another captor. But as they journey together through Laura, Logan rediscovers his purpose. By the climax, he is no longer running from attachment, he is willing to die protecting someone else. Conversely, through Logan, Laura learns that strength is not only about killing and surviving, it is also about caring for others. Logan learns to care again, while Laura learns what caring means. And it's really that simple. You may notice that in many of our examples, the mentor is an older man, maybe not retirement age, but closer to veteran than novice. This is because they need experience, reputation, and enough time to have elapsed that they've lost the principles that their mentee still maintains. In Supergirl, Kara is turning 23. She has, been through more than perhaps anyone on Earth has, losing her planet and civilization, sure, but all of this is relatively fresh, and effectively all she's ever known. We did not get the chance to see Kara as an optimistic individual. She's been a drunken mess since introduction. This could work fine as it does with Rooster if we felt like time has eroded her principles, or if she's maintaining a reputation as a heroic figure on this planet that she frequents. Now Ruthye could go seeking Supergirl, the hint is in the name, and find her washed up, drunk, and uncaring. In this case, we have the opportunity for Supergirl's arc to bring her back to the baseline we never got to see, instead of this weird punk rock thing that DC films are desperately angling for. The film version of Kara takes the worst aspects of comic Kara and drops the redeeming qualities. She's kind of apathetic. When Ruthye loses her sword to an intimidating stranger, it feels like Kara intervenes because she wants to look cool, not because she cares. In Tom King's comic, Kara is reluctant to help Ruthye at first. It's her birthday and she's trying to celebrate, take a day off. But she always remains principled. When Ruthye proposes they seek Krem, Kara tells Ruthye that killing people is bad. It doesn't get much more direct than that. When Krem steals her ship and shoots Crypto, they're now bound together, and Kara immediately assumes that mentor role. She knows the cosmos, while Ruthye has never left her little patch of home. There's a charming scene particularly where Kara teaches Ruthye how to wash her hands. It's caring, it's almost maternal, it's deeply patient. This cinematic version of Supergirl could never. In Nagara's script, when Ruthye initially asks for Kara's help, it's rejected. "Not my circus, not my monkeys," she says. But then Krem, the vague and easily forgettable villain, eats Kara's Cheerios. Oh no, she shoots the space dog. Only then Kara has to chase down the same bad guy and brings Ruthye along. The why of this is ambiguous because Kara is not depicted as someone nurturing enough to care. Ruthye is now just a passenger rather than a driving force. Kara is annoyed and even inconvenienced by her presence. Returning briefly to True Grit and Logan, and then I'm done, I promise, we examine what they have to say about revenge. It's not a clean resolution for rage. When they encounter Krem in a climactic showdown, Kara pleads with Ruthye not to kill him because revenge is not the answer, something that's very easy to say after you've killed countless goons in the process of getting here. Why this is Kara's stance remains unclear. It feels like the type of thing her cousin Kal-El might say, but what experience with the futility of revenge does Kara have? Once Ruthye acquiesces, because Kara has dominion over her, not because she's taught her anything valuable, Kara kills Krem herself, exacting revenge for, thankfully, cutting the CG dog from the budget. She thus fails to put her principles into any practice at all, meaning the whole adventure feels like happenstance. Nothing is imparted from one to the other in a meaningful way. In the comic, though, Kara spends a long time teaching Ruthye that killing is bad, revenge isn't sweet. Then, when Krem banishes Kara to the Green Sun dinosaur planet, and hey, put some dinosaurs in the film, damn it, Ruthye has to practice caring for her mentor, learning patience and empathy. As a result of these moments, when Ruthye has the opportunity to kill Krem, her objective for the entire run, she decides against it. But later, when Kara's horse is killed, let's not get into that, they replaced him with Lobo for some reason, she's ready to kill Krem as retribution. But Ruthye, having learned the lesson that Kara spent so long imparting, talks her out of it. They've effectively swapped places on their initial principles. Being morally scrupulous is one thing, but it's not until your ethics are challenged by extremes that you're really forced to put them to the test. Come the conclusion of the film, Kara is parroting what she's been preaching the entire time. There's no shift in her logic from her first encounter with Ruthye. Ruthye is still hellbent on revenge, and just because she doesn't pull the proverbial trigger doesn't mean she doesn't achieve it. It should not take an entire 90-minute runtime for your protagonist's objective to come into conflict for the first time. This is a failing in the writing that should have been identified before pre-production was even considered. Films often fail to find the balance between making a protagonist this damaged mess, as well as someone who never really crosses any ethical lines. James Gunn knows this fine precipice well. Part of what made Star-Lord so likable was his attempts to balance operating ethically in a cutthroat galaxy where human morals don't exist, with operating as a space pirate who takes whatever he wants. Here, we have a wonderful opportunity to depict Kara as a figure of godlike powers who preaches peace, but is prone to the same rage as the rest of us. For someone she imparted her wisdom onto to shoot it back at her, now that's a powerful moment that we don't get. According to the writing, it's okay for Supergirl to take revenge on behalf of others. Worse, Krem is captured at this point, effectively defeated. This plays out more like an execution, not retribution through combat. Kara being stuck in her grief and unable to move on is an interesting character trait. However, it feels contrived to equate her grief with Ruthie's quest for revenge. The argument that she's trying to prevent her mentee falling into the same traps she herself succumbed to, it's not really tracking. We don't want to make this into another True Grit remake, and it's important to deviate from the material you're paying homage to. That being said, a Kara who begins the film feeling like she cannot make a difference, burying her trauma at the bottom of a bottle, could slowly give way to a more optimistic character when Ruthye teaches her that the very existence of good guys out there helps people sleep at night in this cutthroat galaxy, and Ruthye, who we're introduced to as hellbent on revenge, must learn that justice and revenge are two separate, incompatible ideals. So, let's take a look at our revised synopsis. Krem kills Ruthie's father. Ruthye seeks revenge and employs Kara, who accepts because she, too, has suffered and sought an outlet for her boundless fury in the past. We nix Crypto getting shot from this part of the story completely. Kara goes along with Ruthye because she wants to put a guiding arm around her, fearing where this untethered kid could end up if nobody steps up. She doesn't have a big sister figure, or any Kryptonian peer for that matter, so she sees herself in Ruthye. Throughout their journey, Kara frequently imparts that revenge is not the answer, sparing, and read imprisoning, the brigands that they come across instead of killing them. These lessons seem to fall on deaf ears, but when they capture Krem and Ruthye has the opportunity to execute him, she cannot. Kara's message eventually wormed its way into her brain. Due to this hesitation, Krypto is shot and injured, and in a burst of raw fury, Kara is now prepared to kill Krem. Ruthye has to relay Kara's principles back to her. Revenge will leave you cold. If she truly believes this, she has to lead by example. Now we've got complementary arcs where Kara came all the way out here to get drunk and avoid her responsibilities, but finding this naive girl who she sees herself in gives her something to fight for. She's reminded about what she stands for and why she's needed. For Ruthye, though, it's a classic hero's journey. She leaves her old world behind and she ventures outward into the unknown in search of an improbable, maybe impossible goal. Along the way, she learns that her objective was false and her new experiences give her new clarity. She can now return home with this new knowledge, a changed person. She holds up a mirror to Kara and even more importantly to herself. Does this somehow absolve Kara of the guilt and grief of losing her planet and people? Absolutely not. But it teaches her that her cousin's stuffy Boy Scout ethos, which she's been actively avoiding this whole time, it does actually hold some weight. Now she can return to Earth and she's ready to listen, she's ready to contribute. Her experiences have given her a newfound sense of purpose. For you writers at home, the one lesson I'm asking you to take away from this video is to remember that all of your characters are these component parts floating around within your story, but it's vital that they leave fingerprints and impressions on one another also. This ultimately determines how a viewer is going to interpret the thematic message of your story, and more importantly, how they're going to feel when they walk out of the theater. Make that experience worth their time. If your characters inform and learn from one another, influence one another, then you've taken the audience on a journey along with them. But if you're going to make the audience feel like a third wheel, it's just going to be awkward for everybody. I've been Meara. Thanks guys for watching, and until next time.
If you got something out of today's podcast, please share it with your filmmaking and screenwriting community and hit subscribe. It genuinely helps us keep making these. We need them, and we'll see you in the next one.